Welcome to Showing Our Sass, the podcast. I am your host, Marta Gwen, and this season I am thrilled to introduce my good friend Akyere and my lead author, Snodgrass, as we tackle topics that tend to make people clutch their pearls, especially when it comes to health and wellness. This season, we are going to tackle all kinds of topics related to taking control of our health, and we promise not to pull our punches, because we are living through a time where we just don't have time to play about our health. Acy is one of those people who are driven to fight for what's right, whether it's raising awareness for her community of persons living with type 1 diabetes or pushing for fair and equitable treatment of union workers. Acy uses her body and her voice to help others. Acy also has a habit of trying on a lot of other people's clothes and dancing in front of cameras. You might call her a model, but she would say she just has fun doing things she loves. So without further ado, I present to you Showing Our Sass, Season 1. Let's get into it.
But the whole interest that we had with doing this was the post that I posted the other day from a conversation I was having with a coworker. And basically the conversation led us to have a discussion about contraception, about birth control, blah, blah, blah. And we said, hey, they don't have a lot of birth control for men. They don't have a lot of options. And I was thinking, I was like, what if they had a type of, birth control for men that was non-hormonal? Because, of course, the birth control options for women are majorly hormonal. What could they do? Which led me to think about vasectomies. And so I sent this post I posted a post on Facebook and I said, hey, we already give our male babies, we have them do circumcision, whether it's perceived medical or religious or whatever the purpose is, but we do that whenever our children our sons are born. And we're already, we cut and we do these things, and it's not using any form of numbing. They just do it. It's just what we do. Nobody thinks of it. It's just what happens. It's like cutting the umbilical cord. It's just part of the process of having a child. So I was thinking, what if they could do a vasectomy while they were doing a circumcision?
Reversible, right?
Reversible, because of course, and this entire conversation is of course hypothetical because they would never do this. But if it were possible, or if they did some research to see if it were possible, could we do that? And for the purpose of course, preventing conception. So
unwanted conception.
Unwanted conception, of course. And so that's what birth control is. You're trying to prevent conception, preferably. You can stop a pregnancy after it's been, you've conceived, but we're trying to think about things that are pre-conception. How can you prevent conception? So I posted that question on Facebook and I was like, hey, what if we could do this? And the majority of the people there were flipping their wigs. I had posts in my DMs, people being like, oh my God, you're gonna do this to a baby, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I think you need to Google what a vasectomy is before we have this conversation, because I think you're not understanding what I'm saying. But people were getting vasectomies mixed up with castration. So they were thinking I was saying that they should remove a baby's testicles as opposed to getting a vasectomy, which has nothing to do with the removal of anything. So it was a very interesting conversation. Of course, you have to give the disclaimer about us not being medical professionals in any capacity.
Oh yeah, before we get too deep in this, we are not medical professionals. We're not representing ourselves as medical professionals. We are having a learned conversation where we want to go ahead and just make it easier for everybody else to participate in this kind of conversation. If y'all have some thoughts on this, welcome your comments down here. Be respectful though, because if you are not respectful, expect that your stuff will get deleted, because we believe in respect in this. This is about opening up dialogue and helping people to get over the angst and talking about sex and sexual health and reproductive health and all these other things that for some reason our Puritan roots seem to steer us away from this. And we want to talk about this, and we know it's so urgent to talk about this because this timidity that we have can result in severe illness and death for lack of information. So that's what we're doing. We're opening this up, but we'd love to have you guys go ahead and jump in and give us some comments about this, because we all need to talk about this.
Yes, we do. And of course, when the conversation first came up, they're thinking, well, if for those who are even willing to have the conversation, they were saying, hey, I'm open to this if the child could consent, if they're 16 or 18 or something like that. And I'm like, okay. But I know people personally, or even celebrities like Lil Wayne, who had children at 14. So for the most part, they are, sorry, that's my dog. If you hear any growling or snoring, it's my dog. Just so you know. But I think it's important if you're saying, hey, I want my child to consent, but there are so many choices that we make about our children's health far before they're able to consent, yes or no. We give them vaccinations of every sort far before, they're able to say, yes, I want to have a vaccination for this. And so I'm not saying that we should force this on children or whatever the case, if that's not what you want to do, but I'm just saying that it's a possibility far before it matters. And if you're already cutting into a male child, why not continue, doing whatever you're doing and make it effective for the prevention of pregnancy? I have, in my former life, I worked in a wonderful organization when I lived in Mississippi, and I was an HIV prevention specialist, and I would go into places and help people figure out how, if they themselves had HIV, how they could prevent the spread, or if they wanted to, not get the disease, all that kind of stuff. We did all type of visuals and things. We taught people of all ages, all walks of life. And so I'm also quick to say that this would not prevent disease, obviously, but this would prevent unwanted pregnancies, or it would prevent the possibility of having a pregnancy that you're not ready for. So that was the root of the conversation.
Basically. And I know I was really intrigued when I saw most of the people who were responding to your comment were women. And it was, some were open to having the hypothetical, some were very much not open, without calling any names, because I don't know some of these people. But the objections were just kind of mind-boggling, because the way that I see it, if you lay it out, the equivalent to an early onset vasectomy for a male child is putting a female child on birth control pills, because they're doing the same thing, just in different ways. You're using a hormonal treatment on the female to to stop ovulation. Ovulation being the release of an egg from the ovary into the, we'll call it the tunnel of life. Okay. You're stopping that egg from popping out into the space where it can do the dance with the sperm. Okay. In the case of a male vasectomy, you are blocking the sperm from being able to get into the semen to come and do the dance in the tunnel of love. So it literally is the same thing. It's just that one is a surgical procedure and the other is a hormonal treatment. Mm-hmm. Now, once you move beyond that part, you start getting into some other things, because anytime you're doing something to impede the body's natural processes, you run the risk of the body responding, because our bodies want to produce life. Well, males' bodies want to pump out as much sperm as possible to try to propagate the species. Women's bodies actually fight pregnancy quite aggressively, meaning you have a 14-day window for most during which you can conceive. Okay, that is what your ovulation period is about. So when you look at the stuff and you look at it practically, as opposed to all these romantic notions we have about, oh my goodness, if I have sex the first time, I've got a great chance of getting pregnant. Actually, as many women have learned, it can be very challenging and difficult for some of us to get pregnant.
And the crazy thing is this: a lot of times our bodies as women are in the mood to have sex when we're fertile. So even if you're a teenager and you're irresponsible, and it's two things to this. If you do the research and look it up, most people's first times having sex ever, they're in their teenage years and they have no income. Number two, many times they have sex the first time without any protection. And so if every teenager who has the unction, because our bodies, we as women, we tend to want to have sex subconsciously during the time of ovulation.
Yes, women like and want to have sex under normal circumstances.
Period. We do. We just want to have sex. But especially when you're like, man, that man smells good, or man, my boo is looking great over there.
It really can be smell that triggers it too. That's what's so crazy about our animal instincts. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
It's serious. And so we're truly in the mood during the time of fertility. And so if you're taking a teenager, they're responding to their natural hormones, which are already through the roof, and they're not going to use protection. And most teenagers aren't going to say, Mom, I'm going to copulate tonight. Got a condom I can use? Mom, you know what? I'm ready to go on birth control because me and Jimmy are going to do it probably within the next 13 days.
And
Most
can we talk about why it is that the teenagers don't want to come to their parents and say that kind of thing? Can we spend like let's meander on that for a minute.
Well, yeah, we can definitely lean in on that, but I'll come
finish the thought though.
Well, yeah, the main thing I'm saying is that when we are wanting to procreate when we're wanting to have sex is during a time where our bodies are able to procreate anyway, and especially for teenagers because their hormones are everywhere. So the thought that I had was that if we even take it off the table of something that they're going to have to present to their parent, and let's say it's they can get a vasectomy at 16, let's just say they can, to walk up to your parent and say, I'm ready to have sex. Will you now give me a vasectomy so I can go do this? Most parents, I'm not saying all, because a lot of parents feel like, no, my kids talk to me, they talk to me. I don't think we'd have as many unwanted pregnancies if your children felt that comfortable talking. And I'm not saying that unwanted pregnancies only happen with teenagers, but I'm just making a point and saying that if they felt that comfortable, I think that there would be more, there would be an increase of responsibility when it comes to children being born that aren't ready to be taken care of. And so most definitely when it comes to parents and their comfort, Lord have mercy. It's I'll let you I'll let you take it down that road because that's the frustration that I've had my entire life. I was born with a mother who's very informative and very open and very it's very comfortable. I'm very comfortable to talk with her about all types of things with the body. I remember when I was younger, this was maybe I was maybe 13, 14. And I was 14. When I first started my cycle, I was 14 years old. And I remember the excitement that she had. And she'd always kind of created a level of excitement with us when we were, getting to that age. So I knew what to expect. I understood what was going on. I remember her saying, she's like, the body's so multifaceted. It's just so beautiful. A woman's body is just so great. She's like, your uterus is the place to create life. And your breasts are where you can sustain life. Mm-hmm. And it's like your breasts don't become like a mess or like or invaluable or something that gives you negative attention. It's more. I mean, if you choose, she's like, if you choose to, she always had the door open if you wanted to make children. She's just been very, very accommodating to all of what the female body can do. So I was raised with a positive viewpoint of my body and women's bodies in general. So when I come across friends of mine or loved ones who came into menstruation and came into their fertile walk into being a woman, it was an instant, oh my God, what are we going to do? She's
panic and shame and confusion.
Yeah, and fear and sadness, and it's the curse, and they don't want to talk about it. And my father prayed over me, and all this stuff, and my mother was just so open and so loving.
But some people see it as a loss or a death of innocence. Like, yes, like my childhood is over now because I have this weighty responsibility on me that the most important thing is not necessarily that I protect my health, but I can't get pregnant. It's the worst thing in the world. If I get pregnant, my life is over. Oh my God.
That's it. And it's no conversation about the biological, the social, the emotional, financial aspects of all of that. And it's highly unfortunate. So when I posed the question, it was coming from a place of, I know what young girls, this is the conversation the young girls are going through. It's not like when a boy even has his first wet dream, he's like in tears and crying and everything is falling apart. Not saying that it hasn't happened to a boy, but it's like, that's not their story.
That they don't need more talking to too, because they probably don't understand what all is going on. And I'm sure there's some shame and some confusion on that one. And then they try to peer educate each other. Lord have mercy.
Lord help us. And so, but even with girls, it's like, you're bleeding on yourself. It's all this stuff that can happen. And it's always shrouded in shame. And so I feel like, okay, girls are having to go, and I'm saying girls intentional, not just using the word girls for human females, but girls are having to go through the weight of the responsibility of all that their body is going through at this time, and how people can almost weaponize the beauty of fertility or weaponize the beauty of a woman's body growing and developing as it should. So I'm thinking, okay, what if we put some of that responsibility on the males? And women lost their mind on the phone.
And you know what? For the conscientious objectors who want to go in there, I actually went and looked up this thing just to prove that we put so much more of this on the female than we do the male. And I'm saying female and male on the purpose of reproductive issues. All right. when you look at most common birth control methods, and I'm not going to say all of them, but I'm going to give a good example of them. There are two options that are put before males. Two. And vasectomy is not considered really to be one of them. That is a way of preventing forever. They don't normally talk about vasectomies as a form of birth control because while there are reversible ones, and we'll get into that a little bit more, most doctors will counsel you to make sure that you're okay with never having a kid if you do get a vasectomy, because, they can't 100% guarantee you're going to be able to reverse it. But male condoms are offered to the males. And then you go through all the things that they offer to females to alter their bodies to solve the problem, because we're supposed to take care of it ourselves. And some of this stuff is gross, y'all. Birth control pills jack with your biochemistry. And they just do. But I'm going to get into that. Birth control pills, IUDs. Okay. Yeah, I'm being judgy. For me personally, those freak me out. Birth control pills, birth control pill, female. IUD, female. Tubal ligation, female. Diaphragm, female. Spermicide, female. Cervical cap, female. Birth control sponge, female. Female condoms. Birth control shots, females. I wonder if they could give men a shot. Birth control patch, female. Vaginal ring, female. Birth control implant, female. We put the weight of preventing unwanted pregnancies on the females.
And it's a beautiful thing that these things exist. I'll say that because we're able to have a certain level of freedom that we weren't able to have before due to lack of birth control completely. So we're not knocking birth control. We just want to kind of shift some of the possibility of the responsibility on the males. And so that list is mind-boggling. Because you would think that if men were truly concerned about unwanted pregnancies, this is even a part of their mature mindset, which it should be, that they would have investigated ways to make this more efficient. Or even imagine this, if a guy were to say, or a guy was aware of the rhythm method and say, hey, are you, what part of your cycle are you in right now? Oh, you don't know about that? Or you're not sure about that?
Oh my gosh, yes, that's the thing. Because when we think about female reproductive education, we don't think about the fact that the men need to be informed about how our bodies work also. So I will be very transparent in this one. Here we go. I've been married once before, got divorced, and I got re-singled, as I call it. During my period of re-singledness, before I got into a serious relationship with my now husband, I was kind of out there for a minute because I was trying to figure out who I was. Again, mind you, I had not had sex with anyone other than my first husband at that stage. So here I am, someone who I consider to be studied and educated and whatnot. And the men, the expectations that they had for me to take responsibility for not having anything happen that would require them to put out in some kind of financial or emotional way beyond getting together, it opened my mind. Now, I'm not saying I was out there in the streets like working them, but I'm saying, it was an eye-opening moment for me. And I was very selective in that period of time because you have to be, because diseases, because no, I wasn't about to have a child out of wedlock and then have the full responsibility of doing that on my own. That has never been an ambition of mine. And honestly, I don't think most women ever set out with that goal. Right. I mean,
they don't mind it though. Some women are saying, I want a baby. I don't want the influence of someone else to determine how I raise my child. So that is some people's intention sometimes.
Some do, but usually a woman who is in that mindset is also thinking about how they can provide for and take care of that child should they make that decision on the front. So like, again, this is not a shaming conversation at all. But I mean, a lot of the responses that I heard, and I have a lot of guy friends who I talk to too, and that's a blessing. Oh, it's such a blessing to be a woman who can be comfortable having real conversations with other men, married and single. Though with married, I make sure the wife knows me because I don't need nobody coming for me, right? Because I think everybody needs to be more comfortable talking. But like I had more dude friends coming through school and whatnot and growing up than I did women, just because guys shot straight most of the time and women were always about this artifice, and with a few exceptions of y'all in my life. So when I would hear them, they would say, well, I mean, women can take care of that. Men don't have to use condoms all the time as long as girls on birth control. I was like, do you know how birth control works? Wait, you're trusting her to say yes, like you in there, you get into the business, and all of a sudden you think she's gonna stop and say, oh, well, we can't go any further because I'm within my ovulation period. There's a 60% chance that we could end up having a baby from this encounter. No one's got to stop in the middle of the thing.
And that's the thing, is that it's also been said that if men were to, or young boys were to get vasectomies, they're assuming that, it's going to make men even more irresponsible. And I'm like, no, men are going to be promiscuous if that's what they're choosing to do. I mean, that's just who and what they are. That's who they are.
It's a choice.
It's just a choice, like it is anything else. It's what you're choosing to do with your body. I don't know a guy who is going to say, well, she could get pregnant, so I'm not going to have sex with her right now. He's going to try to pull out. He will talk himself into believing she's on birth control. I don't know a guy who has used condoms from the first day that he has ever had sex until the moment that he decided that he was ready to have a child with someone. I don't know that man, and I know a lot of guys. So I just think that they don't really think deeply about the possibility. And I gave this example before. It's like when you eat a donut, you're not thinking about how much weight you may gain or that it might give you a cavity.
No, you want the donut.
Yeah, people are just thinking, I'm going to enjoy this moment, this donut. I mean, you're not thinking it's going to do anything outside of that. When you get behind the wheel of your car, you're not thinking this may turn into a car wreck. You're not doing that. So for the most part, people do not see sex as, we know that sex is what creates life, but we don't think about that in the moment. And so since many of us don't think about that in the moment, I think taking the responsibility of that moment, as it says, as I've been saying, and thinking about how you can make it a safer situation for your child when it comes to them not being in a position to raise a child in their teenage life or even young adulthood or whenever you have it, then they have to actively say, okay, I've had the vasectomy from birth. I am 22 years old. Me and my 25, whatever. Me and my wife have been married for some years now. We're ready to create life. You then go to the clinic and have it reversed. And of course, we're speaking hypothetically. Let's say it's reversible 100%. Let's say they change the way that they do vasectomies to where it's completely and totally reversible. Because right now, I think it's from 30 to 90% that they are reversible. But let's say it's 100%. It's like people believe when you get off birth control, you can instantly get pregnant. Let's say the vasectomies are the same way. They're reversible and they're able to do it. Would people be open to doing that? And the reason why, like I said, that I'm thinking about that I even thought about it happening in infancy is because we're already doing what is considered a painful surgery on a baby anyway that serves no purpose. So, and if we want to remove the religious and the supposed medical benefits that it does not have, then it's just something that we do for cosmetic purposes, to be honest. So if we're already doing cosmetic surgery on a baby, the 15-minute procedure that a vasectomy is, which I'm all in support for, if that 15-minute procedure is something that we can do to benefit that child later in life, then why is it not even a possibility to discuss the possibility of that?
And I would say it really is culture. It's culture. And it's the fact that we get so squeamish when we talk about reproductive stuff, and especially with men, because I was thinking about that, and I was having a different conversation. So I guess I'll throw that in here too. I was thinking, what are the mitigating factors? What would make someone not want to take that option as a way of preventing unwanted pregnancy? And then I started thinking about, well, if you get in the mind of a male, that's a lot of power that a man has, that he can impregnate a woman, that he can combine his DNA with someone else in a way where he is forever tied to that female. Okay. So if you're looking at power dynamics, hello, sociology, and psychology. If you're looking at power dynamics, that is a loss of male power if he has a vasectomy and he does not have the ability to tie himself to a woman like that with a kind of permanency. All right. But then you got to look back at the other side of it. That's a lot of power for a woman, and some women use it in that way. That's what they talk about when they talk about trapping a man or catching a man or something like that, because you have that child and the law supports you forcing that man to take care of the product that you two came together and made. So even with that one, the balance of power balances out in that equation if you do give that as an option.
unfortunately, babies are often used as power pawns. But I feel like what gets me is that people tend to act so. I guess I try to balance it in my mind, and it's kind of like when a person gets proposed to. Usually you've already talked about possibly getting married. Y'all been in a relationship for a while. You've already chosen a ring. That's what and he's getting it fitted. But even still, when he's on his knee and he's giving you that ring, you're still shocked and you're still surprised. It's something about when you know it's a possibility, but you don't know when it's going to happen. So I apply that to pregnancy, is that people are always like, it was a surprise, baby. Or, I didn't know it was even possible. And I was just so shocked. What, you having sex? You see what I'm saying? Like, that completely baffles me when people are acting surprised. But I was like, let me think back on something where I have been surprised, when it's like, duh, why am I surprised, right? So, but that being said, I think that the importance is that if you understand how pregnancy works, and I'm gonna use these, what is it called, Maury Povich. I'm gonna use his show, the Maury Show, where they're sitting there, and I know, I'm so sorry, I'm really, this is horrible, but when you're watching Maury and they're doing the paternity test and they're testing like 75 men and this whole thing, and it's just ridiculous. The sad thing about that is that if that young lady knew how her body worked, she would know that she only had a couple of days where she is even able to get pregnant. Women aren't able to get pregnant for the most part, unless you got something going on. For the most part, most women are not able to get pregnant 31 days out of a month. So if you're not able to get pregnant 31 days out of a month, and we're going to shrink it down to those days, you should only be looking at those days that you are having unprotected sex with these men. So if in these from 3 to 14 days that you're able to get pregnant, if you've had 75 partners, then I don't know what to tell you. But for the most part, 2 or 3, baby, who knows? Unless you've got a major situation where you're just jumping around with guys, it should be this amount of people that you can go back and say, oh, you know what? I was fertile during this time. I know my body. This is the time in which more than likely, when I had sex with this person, I'm protected that this happened. But I'm watching the show and I realize they don't know how their bodies work. So they'll choose people that they had sex with the entire year, not knowing how it works. And the guys don't know, because they should be like, wait, the baby was born March 5th. Let's go 9 months before that and do those days where, the week of conception or whatever it is. That's this time I wasn't even in the country. Like, you should be that aware of her body and your body before you're even in a situation where you're going to procreate.
And that's just science. That's just basic science.
So when we're in school, I feel like, because, people are like, oh, we're just going to throw, it was said on my page, we should just throw the whole conversation about, sexual health out the window. No, you should still know how your body works, whether or not you're going to be the one. I have, it's something that you should just know. You should know how your body works before you start using it in ways where things can happen to it. So it should be a part. And I know I took like sex ed in school, but it wasn't all that detailed.
Sex ed was a joke.
It was a joke.
It was a joke. When they were demonstrating how to use a condom with a banana.
Yeah. I mean, you got more than we got. I mean, when I was in school, it was, hey, now that when girls have a period, they can get pregnant. But it wasn't going into the luteal phase and the knowing when the different consistencies of your fluid and what that means. And,
Well, see, I was still in Iowa when I had that. I wasn't back. You were back in the South probably when you had sex ed. I was in Iowa. Thank you, Quakers. They gave a little bit more information about that. And granted, university towns, you're going to tend to have a more open receptivity to conversations that can be delicate for some certain communities. Thanks for joining this week's episode of Showing Our Sass. Did we promise you we were going to talk about any and everything? We want to know, did this conversation spark some interest and maybe get the blood going? We really would love to hear from you all. So make sure you come and join the conversation. Like, follow, subscribe. We want to hear from you.